Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Avrin. In this video, I'm going to get into the details with this massive landmark deal with Pfizer and President Trump in the United States and the United States government, how it's going to affect patients, investors in Pfizer and other pharmaceutical companies, and much more information. And if you like the video, be sure to tap that like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Much appreciated. Let's get right into it here, starting first with what happened. What's going on here with this? So Pfizer struck a first of its kind agreement with the Trump administration. So President Trump gave basically multiple pharmaceutical companies a deadline to meet these certain demands by Monday. And Pfizer was the only company pretty much so far that agreed to the deal and to follow with the administration of what they wanted. And so Pfizer said yes to the demands in that letter that Trump sent out to those pharmaceutical companies in July. And so the president also hinted, though, that other companies may follow suit. And you'll see why with the details in this deal and this information. And so this deal basically combines drug price cuts, a new direct consumer platform, the Trumprx.gov, although we'll get more into that because there's some information saying it's not supposedly just direct to consumer. It's kind of like a portal, so to speak. We'll get into that a little bit more, though. And also a U.S. investment commitments. And so that's one of the drives, one of the pushes with this deal is to try to get these pharmaceutical companies to manufacture and research and do more of their business in the United States. So Pfizer is agreeing and they're going to move forward with some new manufacturing in the United States. I'll get into that a little bit more as well. So this is being called a landmark deal, but the impact will differ depending on whether you're a patient, a taxpayer, or a shareholder. So you may not be affected much at all if you don't fall into one of those categories. This will just be news, and then maybe some other pharmaceutical companies will follow suit, and you may be affected when they do because of the medications that they provide that you may be on, or maybe you're a shareholder in that company and so forth. So nothing really super, of course, major, you'll wake up tomorrow and something's going to be upside down or something like that. But there's definitely some movements and some things that are going on in this deal that are definitely going to take effect soon, and you will definitely notice it if you're involved in this company or the medication somewhat in some form or factor. Now, shareholders of Pfizer like this news because the Pfizer stock jumped almost 7% right there. I'll show you the chart right there on the screen. Over 6% gain in Pfizer stock, which I'll get a little bit into that stock later and how it could still continue to be affected with this deal as well. But that's pretty much overall the gist of what happened with this Pfizer and Trumprx deal right here. Let's get more into specific details. So the key terms of this deal. So Medicaid pricing. All Pfizer prescription drugs sold to Medicaid will use the most favored nation MFN pricing. Now you're going to start seeing that more if you're unfamiliar with that. You haven't seen it. MFN pricing. That's the most favored nation. So this is going to be matching or beating the lowest price in other developed nations. And then you have Trumprx.gov. This is going to be that portal, that website that's going to be launching sometime in early 2026. Now this website isn't going to actually sell drugs. It's kind of like a middleman, so to speak. And it's going to let you search for medicine and then redirect you to the manufacturer's direct to consumer channel. That's something that President Trump is trying to push and wants more pharmaceutical companies to do, to sell more direct to consumer. Now, with the Trumprx discounts, many primary care drugs and some specialty brand name medications will average about 50% off through that Trumprx program. And so you'll be searching, you'll see that medication, you'll see the pricing on there, it's what it's supposed to be set up like. And then when you click on it to, buy the medication, you'll be redirected to the direct consumer channel to be able to purchase that medication. And so this deal right here is happening a day before the 100% tariffs on import drugs. So Pfizer is going to be able to avoid that tariff. They're getting a grace period. So a 3-year exemption from certain import tariffs is what Pfizer is getting, conditional on them investing more in United States manufacturing. And Pfizer has pledged to spend $70 billion in research and development in facilities in the United States. So that's of conditional with them being able to avoid that tariff with the grace period and everything. They said, hey, we're going to spend this much money in the United States building facilities and doing research and development and so forth. So they're meeting those demands with that. So like I stated, this announcement is coming a day before Trump's 100% tariff on brand name drug imports, unless the company is building a plant in the United States, which Pfizer is agreeing to do with that $70 billion. So September 30th, 2025, this deal is announced and that tariff grace period starts for Pfizer now. So they're avoiding that. And now early 2026 is when that Trumprx.gov website is set to launch and the discounts will begin. Although President Trump has stated that medication prices are going to start going down now. And in a sense, you could see that happening with some companies starting to kind of change their pricing overseas and so forth. And I'm gonna give you some specific examples on that happening. So price movements will start here and there, but that website is set to launch in early 2026. Now, beyond this date, what's set to happen? There's going to be more rulemaking, more clarification on some of the fine details with this deal, state Medicaid adoption, and potential expansion to Medicare in commercial markets. So this is still something that's going to get built upon. And then there's other pharmaceutical companies, they may follow suit, Eli Lilly, Merck. So this could reshape industry pricing norms, how companies would typically set pricing for their medications, in relation to the research and development, the timelines and things like that. And now also on that timeline, Pfizer committing that $70 billion to research and United States manufacturing products in the coming years. Of course, that's not anything that's going to happen like next week or next month. It takes a while to plan out these facilities, to build them and so forth. But this secures Pfizer that 3-year tariff grace period, which is going to begin now for them. Now, let's get into some investor and consumer concerns with this. Now, this is precedent setting right here. This is the first major United States drug pricing deal of this scope. And now regulatory signal with this is that more pharmaceutical companies may be pushed towards similar concessions, or they may get left behind. If you see these other pharmaceutical giants out here and they're getting a little more, favoritism, they're getting to avoid tariffs, they're getting this, and then you see maybe their earnings and so forth. And other companies will say, okay, we want some of that. We want this target off our back and so forth. So you may have more pharmaceutical companies that may push towards this, or they may rebel against it and try to set up something else elsewhere. Maybe they'll move more out of the United States. So this definitely is going to shake up some things. It will continue to. Now, event risk with this is that you're going to expect, headline driven volatility with this. You saw 6% gain in Pfizer stock based off of the news of this deal. Now, there's nothing like said, there's some numbers here and there, the $70 billion on the manufacturing and avoiding the tariff. So some numbers associated roughly here and there, but it's not like all of a sudden Pfizer said, hey, we're getting this much money from this and drug prices are going to be exactly this, and these are our exact margins or anything like that. So basically just off of the news, Pfizer stock, PFE, ticker symbol, went up almost 7% today. This is a kind of balance with Pfizer while they're planning this. They're trading their near-term pricing concessions for tariff relief and then regulatory goodwill and long-term U.S. investment advantages. So this is a trade-off from them. They're not going to be able to, set their prices as much as they want to here and there. And they're not going to be able to have as much control over their prices. However, they get the tariff relief. They get some goodwill with the government, less of a target on their back, and they get that long-term U.S. investment advantage. With the U.S., basically, this has been happening lately. I did a video, a few weeks ago on the United States government and the investment of the United States in Intel stock. And of course, that stock jumped, after that. It's up, I forget, it's like up 20 something percent. Don't quote me on that, but that stock is up since that deal and since I made that video pretty nicely. And, we'll see how that goes. Just, I believe, announced today, the U.S. government is investing in Lithium America, and it's another company, and it jumped. That stock was trading at $2-3 a share. Then it went up to $5 like yesterday. Now, or after hours today, it went up to like $7. So yeah, investments in these companies can definitely drive the stock price. And now experts are warning that drug makers may raise prices in other countries instead of cutting U.S. prices to meet that MFN. And this has actually already happened. So Eli Lilly raised the price on Mounjaro in the UK, United Kingdom, to lower the cost in the United States. And then Bristol Myers plans to sell its schizophrenia drug at the same list price in the UK as in the United States. So like I stated, this is shifting some industry norms with the pricing. This is going to shake up things with pricing and medications for various companies, not just Pfizer, but other companies as well. And it's already been seen and noted. Now, in regards to the impact on Pfizer, of course, I've been talking about Pfizer throughout this video, so some of the impact on them for sure. And now, for revenue context, Pfizer was projected about $60 billion in 2025 revenue before this deal. And now with a lot of this not going into effect until early 2026, the rest of the year, not much is expected as far as their revenue to change that much in regards to this. Now, there is a discount effect with this because Medicaid already had rebates on medication. So the net revenue hit may be modest because there is talk of like, oh, Pfizer's going to take a big hit to their revenue because, the pricing concerns and everything. Well, there's already been discounted medications and that Pfizer has been, a part of with Medicaid and the rebate. So not much is expected with that revenue hit right there. And now, of course, Pfizer is getting that 3-year exemption from the import tariffs, which is going to save them money on imported raw materials. So that's looking at a savings right there with that. And then there's that $70 billion about that Pfizer is going to be spending on U.S. manufacturing and R&D, which could strengthen their operations and potentially reduce long-term costs and improve supply chain control. If you got a lot more moving parts in the United States, as far as your medication, your pipeline, your shipping, even things like that, that's less cost than, overseas. So they can eventually save some money with this big spend that they're doing with building more and manufacturing more in the United States. And now some of the uncertainty with this, of course, is that how many patients are actually going to use Trumprx.gov versus just staying with their insurers. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be polls out there that'll say this and that, but they're going to like poll like 50, 100 people or something. And then you'll see it maybe on the news, like 70% say this. And it's like, oh, it's just like look at the group size of that, So you're not really sure right now who's actually all going to use this website and who's going to just stick with their insurance. Some people may just check out the website, look at the prices and go, okay, I'm just going to go back over here. Some may look at the prices, check it out, the website, and continue to go that path. So this is some uncertainty with that. We'll see what happens in regards to the uses of the Trumprx.gov. And now a key benefit with this for Pfizer, of course, is that they're somewhat protected from being targeted by the government, in regards to regulations and rules and following this and that. Well, Pfizer's meeting demands from the Trump administration and the United States government. So they're kind of like on the good side now, basically, you know what I mean? Like, so they have less of a target on their back. And that is seen as a good thing, typically with investors in this company. They have some relief. They don't have to worry about, some settlement, some lawsuit, this or that. I mean, not saying they're completely protected and they're like invincible or anything like that, but there's less of a target on their back with them going along with this deal for sure. And, you saw that in the price action with the stock, PFE. Now, also, what are some of the key investor takeaways with this? If you're already an investor in Pfizer, what does this mean for you overall? Now, if you're a passive investor, you're someone that has a position in Pfizer, you put, you dollar cost average into it every week, every month, or maybe you have it in an ETF, an exchange traded fund. Pfizer's a big portion of the ETF. You got a healthcare ETF, a pharmaceutical ETF or something, and you just, invested it regularly. You're passive. You're not trading in and out of it, anything like that. Well, I would stay the course. I wouldn't do anything too drastic. I wouldn't sell all of my Pfizer stock. I wouldn't buy a ton of it right now. I would just stay the course. I would continue doing what I was going to do with the position I have. If I was growing a position in Pfizer, well, I would continue to do that. If I was growing a position in an ETF that had Pfizer, then I would continue to do that. This is important policy news for sure, but not a reason just to overhaul your allocations. Not a reason I would think personally, for me, not financial advice, but for me personally, I wouldn't just do anything drastic based off of this news. So if I was a passive investor in Pfizer, I would just continue being a passive investor in Pfizer. Now, for those active traders out there, people swing trading or day trading Pfizer, if you're day trading Pfizer, hopefully you landed on the good side of that today and made some money. If you're swing trading Pfizer, you probably made some money. Now, if you're actively just moving in and out of it, well, you got to prepare for the volatility around announcements and earnings, because there could be more information to this deal that could be good or it could be bad for Pfizer. So you'll have that risk associated with it, but that could bring on opportunity. If you're getting in at the right moments, or you're holding that position, you're building on it, and you're just realizing the gains, or you're just watching the gains. Because one thing you could do is definitely focus on the catalyst, like the drug list releases and the peer deals. Once the drug list releases come out and you see more of the medications and the prices they're going to be on that website, you'll have a better idea of how this could affect Pfizer, as well as other deals that may be made with other pharmaceutical companies like Eli Lilly and Merck or Bristol Myers and so forth. That's just something to keep out and to look out for. That can work towards your favor or against you, depending on what are the headline news. So you have those catalysts and that volatility that you need to prepare for if you're an active trader. If you're a passive trader, that doesn't mean you need to turn into an active trader because of this news. And if you're an active trader, that doesn't mean you need to turn into a passive investor because of this news. Now, if you want to, of course, that's up to you. Now, if you're passive, you're like, I'm just kind of hanging out, but maybe I want to do a little swing trading with Pfizer. I see some gains. Maybe I want to jump in and then sell some of the position later. That's totally up to you. I can see that happening in a good way. According to one of the websites I use, Simply Wall Street, Pfizer is undervalued. They stayed around, 50, 60% undervalued. And they have that nice dividend as well. So there are definitely some pros in regards to Pfizer in the stock for sure. And, of course, there's the cons with the debt that they have and just other risks they have going on with, this deal not being completely, certain. So we'll see. But that is the main news and information overview of this deal between Pfizer and the Trump administration in the United States, and information on Trump RX. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Take care.